welcome back to a third video where we're talking about bad projects. In first two videos, we talked about what kind of potentially bad instructions you can receive from a client. In the part two, we talked about how to talk to a client about possibly changing their mind and how to suggest alternative workflows. And in this final video, let's talk about some of the projects I actually had to do, or some of my co-workers had to do, or maybe even other companies had to deal with that was sold by a salesperson. Instructions were complete pain in the butt. No one wanted to do it. So let's talk about some of the real stories on real projects. It is middle of a day, super hot, sun's beaming down. I'm gonna have to stick to the shade for this video. All right, so where I wanted to start is legal hold. If you guys heard of legal hold, don't know what it is, legal hold is basically a way of notifying all the employees in the company that the company is in litigation and they shouldn't be deleting any of the emails, files, and such. And in order to complete the whole EDRM, lead support, life cycle, whatever we call it, a lot of software companies started creating software that deals with legal hold. Now, for a small company, there isn't much that needs to be done. You know, you can just track all the employees in Excel, send them an email, wait for confirmation, put a check mark saying, yes, we confirmed, I'm not going to delete anything. But for a bigger company, you need basically a little database, you know, if you have a few thousand people. And then the software will send an email and will keep track of whether the email was received and if the reply was received and all that stuff. So that's kind of how I understand legal hold. However, as e-discovery service provider, there is not really much to do when it comes to that. It's too early in the process, which is actually the appeal for some of the salespeople. They want to get in early. But it doesn't really fit with traditional service provider model. It's kind of too early. But some people insisted like, hey, we're gonna get in there early. We're going to sell it, so we're already locked in as a vendor. And so this is what happened to my friend's company. Is salesperson sold one client this one case of legal hold. They say, we are going to do it for you, so you're going to have an awesome experience with us. So what happened? So after initial training, they kind of figured out how to use it, how to add users, set up the software. Probably a few people got the training. But as soon as the usage of the software started, one project manager was assigned to running the software. And of course, every other person in the company suddenly forgot how to use it. So that one person was stuck using that software. And if there was any kind of request comes in when the person's not in the office, on the weekend, holidays, whatever, everyone would be like, oh yeah, we're gonna need to wait for so-and-so to come in. Because absolutely no one wanted to touch it. They didn't know exactly how it worked. And they don't want to be a person, you know, as soon as you do it once, everyone's gonna go back to you and it's like, oh, can you do that again? And of course, the person who was running the software was pretty miserable too, because now they were the only one who were running it. They got stuck with it, and they even just hated doing it because it was such a distraction to their day. It wasn't what their primary job was. They suddenly had to manage like emails and people and communicate. It's not what service providers do. So it turned out to be like one of those really bad sales that made a lot of employees unhappy because it just threw off the balance of work. It wasn't what the company is supposed to be doing, which is, you know, processing, hosting, running productions. It became more like a clerical work where you're dealing with emails and logging who has confirmed your legal hold and such. Now, was there something that could have been done to make this better or prevent this? I don't know. I guess the idea is trying to get a client early by using legal hold isn't necessarily bad sales tactics, but it really isn't the thing that service providers do, and it just wasn't enjoyable for most of the employees. So the next project I want to talk about deals with my favorite topic, PDFs or custom PDFs, which I absolutely hate. So this project was sold by a salesperson who was kind of failing. They had no sales, and this project was rejected, as we'll learn later, by a few other e-discovery vendors because no one wanted to touch it. And of course, this salesperson jumped on every opportunity just to take anything from a client. And so what did they want with PDFs? Well, they want to take paper, scan it. The paper stack had like table of contents, and they had different chapters, and they wanted someone to go and manually highlight the areas on the table of contents. So you have to draw like a box and then create a hyperlink to a certain page inside that big PDF. And that was one of the tedious parts. There were a few other things, but that's basically what it comes down to. Someone has to sit down and start highlighting sections of a table of content, which could be 2 or 3 pages long, and then create hyperlinks to all the to the actual chapters inside that stack or binder, and then go to the next one, and then go to the next one. All right, so what's the problem here? Well, first of all, no one wanted to do it. And again, you could say like, well, they're employees, they have to do it. But it's a really big change for like a tech person, someone who's in charge of processing data, juggling multiple projects, you know, and now suddenly they have to sit there and concentrate on something like so tedious, which really takes a different mindset, different person to sit there and do it. You spending basically entire day just drawing boxes and creating hyperlinks, and just pick an employee who's going to do it was a nightmare, because everyone's like, not me, I don't want to do it, you know, because then you're going to be stuck doing it for days. So that part was absolutely horrible when it comes to actual employee job satisfaction, I guess. And then from like a staffing or just the resource allocation for other jobs, this was terrible as well. Because once, let's say you have 3 people working and you take one person out to do a project like that, well, it's pretty much like they're gone, like they're on vacation or they're out. There is no way they can help contribute in any other projects. So for example, if you have person processing or TIFFing, they could be working on multiple projects. They kick this off, they run that, they start OCR, and they kind of sit there and wait. There are 3, 4 things running at the same time, then they kick that off and that off. But once you start working on this job that requires 100% concentration, you taking that person out of department completely, and that puts tons of work on people who left to, you know, fill those jobs that are not need to be done. And so that makes it my second hated job that salesperson sold, which again, other vendors had rejected. No one wanted to do it, and we wind up getting stuck with it, and you know, had to make a poor employee miserable for a day or 2 while they had to work on that. And then when the job would come in again, a few months later, same thing over and over. Oh, hey, you already did it for us. Why can't you do it again? You know? Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the last one. All right, so the third type of project. The salesperson went to a client, I believe was a law firm, and they had a bunch of concordance databases on the server, and he's like, wow, you still use this old concordance, and you're doing this and that, and he sold them on hosting, right? And so he said, we're gonna bring it to our company, we're gonna put it online, you don't have to worry about backups, this and that. So he did a great job at selling it. And now we went to the company, we got all these databases, maybe 50 to 70 concordance databases with images, all kinds of stuff, and brought it in-house, and like, all right, we're going to start loading them and setting them up. And as we started doing it, we see that you know, it takes a little while to do each database. You gotta load the OPT file, you gotta load a DAT file. There are a lot of intricacies with their specific data. So we started working on that. And the next day, a salesperson comes in and he goes like, hey, how you guys doing? Is it all loaded yet? And we're like, no, we did like 5 or 6 databases. We're able to like average maybe 3 databases per shift. And so he gets like, freaks out. It's like, what? No, we need to get this done now. This needs to be loaded like in 24 hours. And I'm like, why? What's going on? He's like, I'm trying to impress the client with how quickly we can get this data loaded so we could show it to them. So we, you know, start to go as fast as possible, trying to, you know, extend, you know, run a few extra hours per shift, but it's just still taking too long. So I talk to a salesperson, I go like, look, dude, this is just taking a long time. There's nothing you can do about it. can we talk to a client and get a priority list, like which databases they want to access first? It's not unreasonable, like, okay, this is a very active case, middle, not active. And so he's not having any of it. He's like, no, there's no priority. Everything's priority. It's all got to get done now. And so puts everyone into like this panic mode. And of course, when you have panic mode, people make mistakes, and then you QC, you find problems, so you gotta, all that stuff. And so we spent probably a week just pounding and pounding those databases, trying to get them all loaded as quickly as possible. And after a while, we got all the data loaded, and the client was able to access everything. Salesperson was a hero, like, hey, look how quickly we could do it. And so we left that project alone for a while. And just for the fun of it, probably a month or so later, I went in to check up on which databases a client using, where they're coding, what are they accessing in general. And I found that they're, to no surprise to you, they're pretty much not accessing any of those databases. There was like a couple of logins in 2 or 3 databases. Somebody looked at a few documents, and that's it. Nothing happened. And so there was absolutely no reason for all the panic. There was no reason to try to impress anybody. All we had to do was talk to a client saying, look, what is priority? Which one do you need first? Give it to them on a rolling basis, and not having to rush through these loading steps and potentially having mistakes in there. And there is still a chance some mistakes could have happened, because, if you have 3 shifts of people being pushed quick, something's going to slip through no matter how much QC you're going to do. So that would be my list of 3 annoying jobs I had to deal with, or my coworkers had to deal with, because of either poor communication at the point of sales, or just, trying to sell legitimately bad project that no one else wanted. Do you have a fun story about salesperson selling something they probably shouldn't have, or where the instructions were so complicated that you just didn't want to do it? Please share it with me in the comments. Don't forget to follow on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube. I'll see you next time.